Welcome, Illumineers! It is time to take a rest from your quest and check on into the Lorekeeper's Holiday Inn. That's right, it is the holiday season, which means it's time for little sparkly bits and bobbles, and today is a very special episode because we're making ornaments! So, I am excited. I made these last year for my league, and I'm excited to share it with you because it's a very fun way to turn cards and tokens and things that you have that maybe you aren't using into unique little ornaments. And so you can give them to your friends, you can decorate your tree, or just around the house, your league. The sky's the limit. So it's something that I think is very fun to make, and they're very easy. I say they're very easy. You stick with me. We're going to get through it. There's some parts that you're like, I don't know. And it's pretty family friendly. There's only cutting and then a little bit of burning. So there are going to be times where you're going to want to have a little bit of adult help, adult supervision, or maybe an adult that you trust more than yourself to help you with those parts. But other than that, it's a pretty easy craft. So I'm going to walk you through exactly what you need and how to do it. And hopefully we have a holly jolly time. The cool thing about this project is that it really is only limited by your imagination and what cards are available. But in short, you really can do some really cool things. Like, for example, I tried to do one with the Chippendale Rescue Rangers, where it's all amber, so it looks kind of one color. I did Rapunzel and Flynn, but I did red and green because then it's very Christmassy, and then added some gold for some more Christmas fun. I also like the idea of doing like the token ones, because if you use those, then you kind of get a cohesive look. You can use a pattern where you do the same, like 3 of one piece, 3 of the other, you can kind of move them around so the image just is in blocks. You can do it in whatever order. It's fun to make a bunch to just kind of see what you like. Another thing to mention is that if the thought of cutting up precious Lorcana cards really hurts you, the good news is that you can use the little free cards. I say free, but like, the bumper cards, the tokens that we're advertising, the Gateway. This is from Rise of the Floodborn. You can use those as well. So you can kind of ask around on a sealed or a draft night, be like, can I have those? So that's a way to do it if you are trying not to cut up Lorcana cards. But I'm sure, ask your friends. They probably have some bulk. People like me have a lot of bulk. And the other thing you can do to kind of stretch the cards a bit is to use glitter cardstock. So we'll talk a little bit more about like what kind I recommend, but you can get kind of like the holographic effect. This one I use blue for stitch, obviously very cool. So that kind of cardstock is going to add a little dimension, some razzle dazzle for the Christmas time. So that'll also kind of stretch out the cards you use if you are having pain thinking about cutting up your cards. But someone out there could very well make one out of a golden Mickey and maybe like a Let It Go and a Rapunzel. And I think the hollow would look so good. So if somebody makes that, tell me. I want to see it. First up, I'm going to show you what you need in order to make this craft. Now, this tool is something that is sold by Fiskars, the scissor people, and it's nice because it allows you to measure and cut. The cards are going to be 2.5 inches wide, so this allows you to cut into 1/2-inch strips very easily and efficiently, and that's something I value. You can use Sharpie, paper, scissors, but this is something that I have found that is very nice to use, especially if you're making a lot of these. As I mentioned, you'll need some kind of black permanent marker. Sharpie is obviously the one I like, but something that is going to be able to trace the outside of the cards, which I'll show you why and how later. You'll need scissors. I have hair scissors, which are not super great for this craft, but I'm sure you have better scissors around. You are going to need some beads. These are decorative, so they're a little optional, but I really like these beads because they have 2 sizes. Each ornament's going to use 2 beads. I use the smallest size and a medium size, and I'll kind of show you how it kind of helps add to the decorative side. But as a little hint, the smaller one is going to go on the bottom little dongle dangle, and the top one is going to go up at the top knot and kind of hide the leftover string. Next up, we need a hole punch. The hole punch is going to be where we punch at the top of each strip. I use 1/8-inch hole punch. You don't want it to be too big because if that's the case, then the beads will fall through. So generally you're going to want a hole punch that's around the same size of the cord that you're using. In this case, 1/8-inch hole punch. And then the last thing you're going to be using is what is hilariously called a Rattail Cord. This is kind of rat-colored rat tail. But this is the 1.5 millimeter rat tail, and the good news about this cord is it does not stretch. So when you have it not stretch, it means that your ornament, whatever tightness you put on it, it is going to be what you want it to be. And the reason I say you are going to use a flame is because you can use this vinyl cord and a flame to briefly heat up the tip, and you're going to get this really cool little plastic nub that you can use to thread through the holes that you made. So those are going to be the basic supplies, with the obvious last thing that you're going to need is Lorcana cards. You're going to need 3 per ornament, but like I'll kind of show later, you can also use 2 cards and a placeholder material, something holographic or sparkly. I will say as a note with the sparkly paper, you're going to want tight grain sparkles, nothing with like big sparkles that you can rub off. You want it to be really tight to the paper, because otherwise it's not going to bend super well. So cardboard or cardstock that has tight glitter is going to bend a lot better. Now, as I mentioned before, it'll take 3 different cards in order to make one of these ornaments. So I already cut up these pieces, but I wanted to show you why I really, really like this tool. So first off, it's just sounds cool. But what you do is it's got this metal bar that's exactly a 1/2 inch. So what you can do is you place your card in there, and it has this nice little stopping part, and then it has this holder to kind of protect your fingers and hold the card down, and then you just slice. So I understand that it feels bad. It feels bad to cut a Lorcana card. If you're gonna have to do it, at least this way you just keep going through, and then you're gonna keep doing that. And then it works out. They're a little under 2 inch, it's a little under 2.5 inches. So one of them is always going to be shorter, but within a few seconds, you've cut them into 5 strips. The next step is to do what I said was optional, but I don't think it's optional because I kind of intend to be a perfectionist. But you're going to take a Sharpie, and you're going to take either a chisel Sharpie or one of these kind of classic black Sharpies, and just trace the edge of the marker along the edge of the card. Now, one thing you might want to do that I have learned the hard way is always put the back of the card towards the marker, because that way if your marker slips, you draw a line on the back of the card and not on the part of the card. But you'll just kind of drag it all the way around the edges, and then what you end up having is, instead of having these white edges, which you might be able to see on the camera, you have black, and so you don't really notice it because you would have got a white edge. The last thing you're going to do is punch a hole into each of them. Now this one, it doesn't have to be perfect, so don't stress out too much, but you're going to take it about so this is a 1/8 hole punch, so about 1 hole distance. So you'll have a hole, and then you go 1 further in that, and then you just punch a hole. You're going to do that on both sides. So like I said, it doesn't have to be a perfect, it just has to be consistent. And you're going to do that on all of the pieces. So like I said, you go in about 1 full 1/8 of an inch, which is the same length as the hole, and you get to the closest to the center as possible, punch the hole. I like to keep the cards in order because this is where it kind of can get fun. So you can do 3 of the same cards and get kind of a repeating pattern. You can also do 3 different cards, but if I have it like this, then I can do it in order. So now we're getting to what could be considered the difficult part. Just keep in mind you're gonna mess it up, but then you can undo it and do it again. So don't get stressed out. Worst case scenario, just cut the cord and start over. That's the only thing, is sometimes these knots are hard to get undone, but then just cut the cord and buy more. There's always a cube. So the thing to keep in mind is that this is the outside of the ornament for 90% of the time, and then the back of the card will be on the inside unless you're making a backwards one, which I'll show you an example of what that looks like, where it's just the back of the card. But I like to do the alternating pattern, and in this case I have 2 Tinkerbells and a Peter Pan, so I'm going to do Tinkerbell, Peter Pan, Tinkerbell. So you'll start, and like I said, this is going to be the outside of the ornament, so you want it facing down towards the bottom of the string. At this point, you have the part of the back of the card that you don't want to show on the outside is going to be facing up, and the part you do want to show is facing the little dongle, which I don't think that's a scientific term. And like you can see, I already messed up. I put Peter Pan first, even though I said I wasn't going to do this. But you can undo anything that's done on these. It is really a very forgiving craft project. And then you're going to go down the line and start your pattern. So I'm going to do the furthest one first. And so I put all 3, and then I have 3 pieces here on the card. And you're just going to do that one by one, remembering your pattern. Because if you don't, you're going to get really mad when it's done and go, I told myself not to forget that. This one I just noticed doesn't have holes in it. So there are no mistakes, just happy accidents. And I will go ahead, do that. Now it's important, the only thing as far as orientation is to make sure you keep the cards the same orientation. So you want, you know, the text, picture, all on the same side. And like I said, you're just going to keep repeating this over and over, making sure it's the bottom hold, making sure it is oriented same way. And this part can go pretty fast once you're good at it, but I tend to get distracted, especially if it's something that I'm like, oh, this is super easy. And then you'll just go through, finish that pattern. And you know, I could edit this to make it look like I haven't made any mistakes ever, but I think it's good to watch me struggle a little bit. So that way, you know, like, hey, this isn't going to be perfectly easy. I might make a mistake, like I just did now, because I'm talking while crafting, which is really hard to do. And lastly, I will, see, I'm already confused. Talking and crafting, it's not for weaker. So now I have all 3 cards in order on here. So just like we did with the other bead, we're going to tie a knot right on the other side here. So like I said last time, Rattail Cord does not stretch. So you really want to get it as close as possible and then just wiggle that knot as close as you can. So that way there is no wiggle room here. So disclaimer, we're about to start the hard part. And the good news is the hard part isn't that hard. So keep in mind the ornament, you're going to want it to be outside facing outside. So we just started with the most outside card, and we're going to start with the most outside card again. So when we're looking at the stack, the one closest to the dongle is the one you're going to pick up and you're going to thread first. And like I said, you want it to be where it is curved with the art outside. So you'll go ahead and thread through the hole of the most outside. Then you're going to take the one next to it and you're going to thread your thread through the top of it. So what you're doing here is if you pull it kind of tight and get some tension on it, you're going to see that this is when it starts to overlap. That's how you know you're doing it right. If there's no little bow here and they're not overlapping, that means that you've done it in the wrong order and you need to restart. So the good news is the ornament's really good at telling you that you messed up. And as you do it, you're going to see more and more of the ball form. Now, I like to keep some tension here because when I do that, it kind of makes it where it doesn't spring back up and I don't have to redo that tension. But then I will go through sometimes a couple at a time. I'll kind of do like a little time lapse here, but you're just going to keep going through. And remember, when you're grabbing a new one, always grab the most close to the dongle. Once again, we're using that term again, but I mean, it's what I got. So you're always grabbing from that one, folding it over, taking the string, threading it through the hole. That little flame trick I showed you at the beginning, the reason it's so nice is because, as you can see, as I did that little melty, it's nice and it's a good solid plastic tip to get that threaded. So, time lapse. Alright, so we're at the very last one. So we'll go ahead and thread the last hole. And as you can see, we've got this kind of cool little conch shell. I say it's a conch shell because it is not going to line up perfectly. You're going to have one side that's a little bit higher than the other side, but that's okay because that's just how it works out. And then you're going to want to get the tension right. So technically, if you tie it loose, it's going to be something kind of loosey-goosey like this. And if you tie it too tight, it's going to be really tight and you'll start seeing some gaps. And it can even like bend the material where you have a permanent fold. So be as careful as you want to be, but basically make sure that you get this tension the way you like your ornament to look. And you can play around with this. And the very next thing you're going to do is we are going to add our final bead, which is our larger bead. And I'll show you in a minute why I like using a larger bead on top. But you're going to make sure you have that tension you like, and then that's where you're going to tie your second to last knot. Well, we're not after this. So you're going to tie it, like I said, get as close as you can. And then I kind of messed up there, but that's okay. I'm going to make sure up. Yeah, it's pretty good. So it's not as tight as I normally would like it, but I still think it's pretty. And what you can kind of see is that the art makes it where it's different colors. You can see there's Peter Pan and Tinkerbell. And really, it's just a way to celebrate your favorite cards. Obviously, none of the art's going to be super visible on there, but this lets you choose all the sorts of fun patterns and combinations that you want. So your final thing to do, we're tying a knot. Can you believe it? So the goal is to tie the knot between the bead and the knot. So the easiest way I have found to do this is to tie a knot around the knot. And so to do that, you just kind of want to hold it in place. You're going to want to take your string and tie, I'm obviously struggling here, but you're going to tie a knot around here. So you want to make sure that whatever you tie this knot is as long as you want your ornament string to be. If you're like, well, that's too long, you can kind of play around with this to get a little less or more material. But essentially, once you've got the length you like, remember, we're tying this knot between the bead and the other knot. And just like that, we pull the knot tight, and then we have our ornament. Now, the reason I like this big bead is because now we got this little rat tail here. The Rattail Cord has a rat tail. And we are going to take our scissors and cut pretty close to that knot. These are hair cutting scissors, so probably not the best thing to be using for this. But yeah, so then we cut it and we've got this little nub here. I do one last melt of the vinyl. Once again, don't do this if you are unsupervised, or even if you're supervised and you're not good with things like that. You're going to get this nice little plasticky edge. And then what you can do is you can tuck that edge into the bead. So now you've got a little bit of a nicer knot. And just like that, you have your ornament. So I think it's very fun. It's something, like I said, super customizable. I think this one's very fun because it's got 3 different colors, but the sky is the limit. I think it's fun to you could do it in blocks or alternating, adding the glitter paper. There's so many fun ways you can take it. And like I said, it's something that is pretty safe as long as you have somebody doing the scissors and the little burning. That's something that you can share with the family. Or even do it on a league night. I think that's something fun as we get close to Christmas. I made, I think, like 30 of them and brought them to league and gave them out to people and tried to remember what people's favorite characters were and say, hey, I know you like Merlin, so I brought you this one. So it's just a fun thing to do with the holiday season. And it makes me feel better about how much bulk I have because I have less now, and now they're ornaments. So I hope you enjoyed making this craft. I hope you share it with me. I can't wait to see what you guys made. So make sure to contact me with what you've made, and if you have any questions, you can contact me on Instagram, on Blue Sky, on the site formerly known as Twitter. I'm still there for now. An email at contact@thelorekeepers.in. I'll shoot you back. I'll reach out to you. I'll help you with whatever you need to make sure that you get your ornament right. Remember, if it doesn't work, just cut it, restart, because there's a learning curve, and even I get distracted and kind of miss it. So I hope you enjoy making it. Once again, thank you so much for stopping by the Lorekeepers Inn. We're so happy to have you stop by no matter where your journey may take you. And if you don't know where to find us, just take the second star to the right exit and head straight on till morning.